Legally Speaking with me, Tarun Nangia. Today we're going to discuss the new income tax rules, and I've got a panel of experts with me. Mr. Monish Verma, veteran IS officer who served as the Principal Chief Commissioner of Income Tax. Now he's MD, MBSG India. He's also an economist, consultant, researcher, practitioner, author, speaker, administrator, and basically somebody who has a vast experience on global and digital taxation. Good to see you, Mr. Verma, and appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Tarun. It's a pleasure.
I also have senior advocate Sumit Nema, who joins us. He practices at the Madhya Pradesh High Court. He joins me from Indore. He also practices at the Supreme Court of India. Good to see you, Mr. Nema. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, good evening, Tarun. Thank you for calling me here.
And at the outset, let me request Mr. Monish Verma to give the opening comment, and then we'll move on to specific questions. Over to you, Mr. Verma.
Thank you, Tarun. So I think it's a great opportunity to discuss with all of you. The important thing, brief, which I would like to just put forth, is that the income tax code has now been brought in by the government, and which is a very, very big, important step taken, because a code is a different thing than an act. Because the code has actually is the first time probably in the last 60 years that the income tax structure has been now modernized and brought in sync with the changes, with the technology, with the new sectors, with the new economy, and with the globalization. All these aspects have been taken care of, and a lot of redundant language and amendments which were there have actually been now removed. Now, the income tax rules are actually always they are the instruments which help in implementing the Income Tax Act. So that is why now this time the income tax rules have also been significantly modified and large scale changes have been brought about. And I'm sure this is something which is really transformational for the economy, and it will bring us up with the real time situation at a global level and as well as at the domestic level. So that is why it's very important to understand as to how it is going to take place in coming times. Thank you.
Thank you for the opening comment. I'll go to senior advocate Sumit Nema for his opening comment.
Basically, Tarun, the rules are in line with the new act. Like the new act actually consolidates a lot of sections and it reduces the number of sections, and the language has been simplified. The same thing has happened with the rules also. Now, instead of having an elaborate set of rules, now various rules which were overlapping have now been consolidated. And the same thing has been done with the forms also. Now, the number of forms have reduced to the extent of 50%. Likewise, the rules have been reduced to the extent of 35% in line with the Act. The number of sections have been reduced by 35%. So it's all a process of simplification and also giving a leeway to the ordinary taxpayer to try to understand the income tax law. Because ordinarily, what we think is that it's beyond the realm of understanding of a simple person. So this time the endeavor is that everyone who's actually paying the taxes should be able to understand the rules as well as the act. That's the basic endeavor. Otherwise, the law remains the same. The law has not changed, and this has been done precisely to avoid any interpretational disputes. The earlier law and the new law remains the same. It's only a consolidation and simplification.
Point very well taken. I'll go to Mr. Verma. Mr. Verma, at Legally Speaking, basically cases are our focus. And that's why I want to ask you whether these new rules will reduce litigation, because what we saw in the past few years in income tax is the amount in dispute went up exponentially, obviously, which means there were more disputes. Do you think the new rules will help?
So I think the focus of the new rules are basically increase the objectivity and make it more transparent. So simplicity, clarity, efficiency, these are the areas where the government is now trying to focus on. So what is going to happen is that the moment the taxpayers and the citizens start feeling that things are objective, they are fair, naturally the degree of litigation is going to go down on both sides, whether it is the tax administration or whether it is the SSC. Both of them are going to feel more confident about each other. Therefore, the litigation certainly is going to go down for cases which are now going to be taken up in future. So I think this is certainly something which is a very, very good step. And except for the fact that maybe for the transitional period, there might be some little adjustment time to the new system that is there. But so far as litigation is concerned, I think just like I think Mr. Rima mentioned, I think things are going to be better, clearer, more efficient, and more support of these citizens and taxpayers in this.
Point well taken. I'll ask the same question to Mr. Neva, that the amount in dispute in income tax, as I gather from IRS officers, has gone up significantly in the past 4 to 5 years. It should have gone down. If that is true, then do you think the new rules will help in this regard? See, for example, if today amount in dispute, let's say 8 lakh crores, if it becomes say 20 lakh crores, there could be two explanations. The economy is growing and the amount of dispute is growing. That's one explanation, the most simplest people give. Doing more business, more.
Correct.
But the aim of the rules is to simplify, so it should actually go down, or even if it's the same, if it's 8 lakh crores for the next 5 years, it will seem that the rules are working. Otherwise, it would seem so. From the litigator's perspective, are things going to change?
No, I don't think so, because actually the law remains the same. It's only the procedure that has changed. So the litigation which was there earlier is going to continue, and whatever the transitional period litigation is there, it's going to increase. And under the new act, probably if only the assessing officers are trained, just like the Honorable FM said on her speech while introducing, that the tax assessing officers will be made more tax friendly. So if that changes, then only the litigation would go down. Because in our field of practice, we've seen that litigation goes on forever, even if the issue is covered by the Supreme Court or the High Court. Even then, the department, for the sake of it, files an appeal. And then the cases are lingering on in the High Courts and then the Supreme Courts. If that effort is taken again on the eve of introduction, just to consolidate the issues at the High Court and the Supreme Court level, and to thresh out and leave out those issues which are already covered. Because, in my opinion, if all the cases are consolidated and looked into by maybe the AI method or something of that sort, we'll find that 90% of the matters would be covered some way or the other.
Point very well taken.
That should be the effort now.
I'll go to Mr. Monish Verma. Taking ahead from what Mr. Nema has said, do you think this can be done?
So, while what Mr. Nema has said, I appreciate, but the only point I was trying to say that litigation is not only dependent upon the laws and the rules. There are many other factors which determine the litigation. Okay, the attitude of the officer, attitude of the SSEs. There are so many aspects to it. So we cannot just say that it is big. But my point is that wherever there were gray areas, there were loopholes, there were confusions which are there, those things are getting sorted out, because if you increase the level of objectivity, you are basing your assessments on data, and you have more transparency, naturally there will be very little to dispute. So I'm not trying to say that even if the attitude is negative, or we don't have enough motivation, or the either of the any of the stakeholders are not taking interest in reducing litigation, it's never going to happen. But this is a step which is certainly positive, and it will reduce litigation.
In fact, Mr. Verma, you said it very beautifully, that it's the attitude of the officer and the SSE that decides whether there is going to be a case, or or things are going to maybe say settle.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the attitude, I mean, with all due regard to everybody, there are times when parties are interested in litigation. So let us be very clear about the pragmatic part also. And that is why I'm saying that only when you're talking only about the rules and the act, they are certainly going to contribute to reduce to it, provided we have the right approach of all the stakeholders.
Point very well taken.
I'll just add on, Tarun, one.
Yes.
I'll continue with that. In fact, there is a very positive change that has taken place. Now people have the time to file the updated returns even after receiving the assessment and the reassessment notices. That's a very welcome change, because the reassessment notice actually crystallizes the issues which are contentious. The tax department says, look, you've evaded so much of income. Now, at that point of time, the SSC now has been given an option to file an updated return with some additional taxes. So that is a very, very
So
welcome
are you
step.
saying that compliance has become easier for small taxpayers and MSMEs in real terms?
Yes, provided they understand that a 148, which is a reassessment under the earlier regime, where the tax department identified those areas which were contentious or where the income had escaped. Now you have an opportunity to file an updated return offering that income and to avoid penalties and further litigation. So, to that extent, definitely it would reduce further litigation. That's a very, very welcome step.
In fact, I'm taking this now question to Mr. Monishwar. But see, if you open the newspaper today, you see a lot that the income tax department has used artificial intelligence, that it is using data analytics, that it is using faceless assessments, and that is why there is more, in a sense, recovery. Do you how this will impact?
Yes, Tarun. So that is in line with what I was earlier saying, that once we are basing all our rules, regulations, forms on objectivity and data, what happens right now, just as Mr. Nima said, that now new provisions have come where the idea of the government is that we are going to provide opportunities to the taxpayers and the citizens to come up voluntarily. See, we have to take everybody together. The concept of levying penalty and go into litigation, that is an attitude which is a little, primitive, let us say. So now all over the world, we have to take everybody, all stakeholders have to work together. So then only, if we are only having just only for very, very exceptional SSCs that we have those, sections of penalty and prosecution. So most of it is that as and when you go and you want to file your return, you get all your data on your, it is populated, your forms are populated today. Why? Because we want to help you out. The idea of the government to help you out. And that is why, again, these forms and new rules which have come, lot of them will always be populated. So you will not be in a position to like kind forget also. So all this I am saying, the part of rules and act, they are all there, non-invasive. You see, this is called non-invasive action by the government, through which I will inform you that this is your liability, this is your transaction. So please comply to it. Okay. It's only in the case of hardened, people who do not want to still pay taxes, that it will be harsh. So that is the way in which the country is moving ahead, and it's tremendously progressive, tectonic shift by the government.
I'll take this to Mr. Nema. I'll tell you, in Delhi, where we are based, the traffic challan system started. And what used to happen is people used to see challans were 10, 20, 30,000, wherein which they used to dispute the challan, saying that, this violation never occurred, a photograph was taken, and the challan was sent. Now, the police department themselves have issued instructions that these challans have to be issued when you meet the person, you tell him what he is charged for, generate that challan. What used to happen is people used to land up at their house and receive messages that they have been challaned under 10, 20, 30, and people claimed that these offenses they never committed. So now why I'm telling you this, AI and data analytics, there was newspaper report saying that they'll go through your social media accounts, they will sort of try to see how many customers enter your business, they try to base your income upon what you sort of are, what they are managing to see through AI and allied analytics. Do you think this is a dangerous area or a perfectly valid area for using to tax people?
That depends on whether they share the data, because at times what happens, Mr. A gets a notice that you not reported income to the tune of, let's say, 5 lakhs, and we have information, they say that yes, you have evaded. Now that information is under a particular matrix which is not shared. When you
Okay.
ask for that information, they say that this is under our risk management system and we are not going to share this information with you. Now, in the absence of that information, it becomes very difficult for an assessee to actually conceptualize whether I am supposed to offer this for tax or whether I should litigate. So, if there are parameters which are made and FAQs, that some sort of an information, maybe the secret sources may be kept apart, but the information per se, if it is shared, then, like you said, a traffic challan, they give you the time and the place where the challan was actually generated. So, likewise, where information is shared and it is shared in a manner that the taxpayer comes to know of these sort of information, then he can either decide to settle it or litigate it. So if that information sharing becomes seamless or transparent, that would help in a long way in actually settling a lot of disputes.
Point well taken. I'll go to Mr. Verma. Mr. Verma, this new tax rules that are coming, do you think they are transformational in India's tax landscape? Can we be sort of comparing ourselves to other developed jurisdictions around the world, say with America, for UK, US? Because a lot of people these days they are mobile. A lot of people migrate from here to abroad. They also come and settle down here, and I'm told that tax is one thing that they very closely look when they are migrating to a country. Do you think we are up to that level now with this new rules?
Tarun, I think probably I'm sure we are all aware that the manner in which our technology, along with the faceless assessments, along with the use of data, along with so much of intelligence inputs, which is there, and also very importantly, as you said, now gradually there is exchange of information between various nations of the world. So today it is not easy for anybody to escape out of your country and say that I will get away and just not be caught. So that is something which is in the digital world today. It is something which is tracked ultimately. Maybe it will take some time, but now there's so many ways in which every individual is tracked, that's very difficult for people to get away. And the other part, as you said, that probably even the most developed economies in the world today, whether you take USA, you take Germany, or whichever country you take, the manner in which our system has evolved, not because we are trying to say that we are just talking through our hats. No, it's not like that. Actually, we are really doing something which is very exceptional. Also keeping in mind that the huge population we have got, the variety of sectors we have got, the manner in which people have become aspirational, the way we are working in a democracy. If you see all these things, I think we need to be really, really appreciative of the kind of changes which are taking place. The only challenge which is there and which is going to be there in future also is the manner in which the technology has to catch up. You have to catch up the law with the technology. You have to use the data. All these things are also big data management. All these things are a challenge for everybody all around the world. And that is what is there in India also. But we are actually effectively using a lot of those data, using the technology, and making it simpler for people also. You see, so I would think that the overall picture is very positive and probably one of the best.
Okay. One follow-up question to you. A lot of time, the income tax and the government complains that very few people end up being taxed. So whoever is being taxed bears a larger burden of the responsibility. Mainly, sometimes salaried people are those, or in businesses where the extent of cash transaction is not that much. They have no way to escape. Whereas many other sectors, they sort of underreport income. One recent example that comes to mind is of food sellers or biryani sellers that came under the racket, and they said that underreported income would be to the extent of thousands of crores. Given the scale of India's economy, do you think that these new rules will be able to track such evasions so that the existing payers who pay honestly don't come under a heavy burden that they have been?
Okay, the question is to me, is it? Yeah. So again, what I am saying, you see, income tax rules are actually going to support the Income Tax Act. Now, the Income Tax Act is passed by the Parliament. Now, what to tax and whom to tax is a matter which is to be decided by the Parliament. Okay. Now, you have to also keep in mind that keeping in view our history, our social, political, economic, various factors, it is not easy to suddenly transform and start taxing other sectors.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Neither socially nor politically. Okay.
yes,
It's not possible. Even economically, I will say.
yeah.
Because agriculture, again, though it has been talked about, still it is a sector where you need a lot of support. Now, how to design such taxing mechanisms is something a matter of coming in coming times. I am sure more and more people will come into the net. Now, how they will come to that? Because when data is being generated, then we will come to know as to what are the patterns in which people live, what is the actual incomes people have. Even though today I'm sure the black economy still exists in India to a significant extent, and that is the economy through which we are talking about people who are in the unorganized sector. So while the target of the government and for everybody is that most people should share these taxes, and in GST they are sharing these taxes. But so far as income tax is concerned, probably we need to have better mechanisms, and I'm sure they're going to come. It's not the rules actually which is important, it is the intent of the parliament and some mechanism where all the stakeholders come together and they are in a position to accept that more of us will contribute through the income tax.
Point very well taken, Mr. Nema. We've seen the rise of disputes, like large disputes related to inflow of capital in India from Singapore, from Mauritius, and some judgments have come recently. Uh, they're right or wrong is a matter of discussion, but these things have happened in the recent times. Where is India, in your view, heading as a tax-friendly destination? Because when say somebody sitting in London is looking at India as a destination, he also looks at Dubai, he also looks at other jurisdictions before committing money to this country. In your view, where are we heading as a economy on the tax litigation, the tax assessment front?
The tax rates, Tarun, I would say are comparable to the best in the world. There's no problem about the rates. The only problem is the interpretational part, that the person who's investing money has an interpretation A, while the tax collector has an interpretation B. Now, these two interpretations meet after 10 years.
Oh,
And till then, the amount in dispute becomes so large that the newspapers start reporting it. So if we have a mechanism that on day one we have a neutral ground where both of them can give their interpretations and come at a consensus that this would be the taxable figure or maybe the taxable transaction, then day one would give a clarity. That mechanism has sort of been implemented, but it's still a long way to go. So, in case we have some kind of a mediation in amongst the taxpayer and the assessing officer on day one, where he starts the business, that would go a very, very long way in reducing the large litigation. Like you were talking about Tiger Holdings. Now, the tax demand now is much more than the amount which was invested by that company because of the penalties and the interest portion of it. And that again is a gray area because on the face of it, they followed all the rules, all the regulations by investing through Mauritius, and Mauritius had a double TA with India. Now, another aspect of looking into the transaction or looking behind the transaction has come in, which was never there. So, had they known this at day one, they would have definitely paid that 25% of taxes. But now the taxes have become more than what they've invested. So, this is the kind of negativity which goes all across the world. Like Vodafone also. Day one, had they entered into some kind of an agreement with the taxpayer, they could have avoided that litigation because
Or
it
the
was,
Blackstone dispute
yes.
that's now going on in
That's
Supreme Court?
so everything. I think mediation is required to be introduced in the new tax regime. That day one, let's put a threshold of 1,000 crores or 2,000 crores at the inception, so that at least people who are contributing capital in India have a certainty.
Point very well taken, Mr. Verma. Do officers have are they empowered to enter into conciliation and settle, or there is absolutely no way that that can happen?
You see, as we're talking about these international capital inflows, there are mechanisms like the APA, Advanced Price Mechanism, and then we have safe harbor rules. So there are mediation mechanisms which are existing. Now, a few things which are also important to keep note of, like Tiger Global Decision, is that you have in a global context, if you see, there are a lot of multinationals who are not paying taxes anywhere in the world.
Hmm.
So when we talk about tax fairness, in a global context, we also have to appreciate that it's not only India, it is probably everywhere in the world, whether it is UK or whether it's in Europe or in US, whenever the companies are not paying the fair taxes, the governments in those countries have been taking, those measures and slapping penalties. So it is not anything isolated about India, it's just highlighted in this context. But if you also see, the question is whether any particular multinational is using these low tax regions for doing little unfair, I would say, because if you don't pay tax anywhere in the world, that's not a fair thing to do. And by doing that, see, the question with this, the judgment which has come generally says that it's a question of your sovereignty. It's also a question about fairness, tax fairness. So all these things have to be kept in mind, and I'm sure that once, while tax certainty is certainly something which everybody wants, and I'm sure that these mechanisms and these mediations are certainly important, I think it is also fair to understand that in the long run, some mechanism has to be there where we can't compromise on, having free lunches for everybody in the world. That's not a fair thing. Therefore, we should not feel ashamed of this. I think this is something which is a very, very strong, good step, and we are willing to support all kind of capital inflows with more certainty and more mediation. I think that's fair enough.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. It was an interesting discussion today. We sort of discussed the income tax rules. We also ventured into the area of foreign investments, how they ought to be balanced, from India's needs to get investment and be an attractive destination, as also its right to tax. Of course, this discussion we will take up in another show fully, much larger topic. But I would appreciate your time on that. Also, I would like to thank Mr. Monish Verma, Senior Advocate Sumit Nema. Appreciate your joining us on this important issue of the income tax rules. When the act comes into force, there would be another discussion. Thank you so very much.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Tarun.
much,
Thank
Tarun.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Neva.
Now we are joined by Advocate Siddharth Sharma, who's going to speak on the new income tax rules. Good to see you, Siddharth, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me over, Tarun. First of all, I must thank you for having Mr. Sumit Nema and Mr. Monish Verma here, because of the reason that I'm not sure if you are aware, but I'm 100% sure that viewers in MP at least are aware about this, that Mr. Nema comes from the office of late Shri B.L. Nema. Shri B.L. Nema was a senior advocate and was perhaps one of the first tax specialists in the state of MP. It's a very prestigious office, and Mr. Nema had then taken over that particular office. So whenever I see Mr. Nema, I see generations of tax advocacy of the state of MP. So I'm very happy here to appear with sir. And as far as Mr. Verma is concerned, Mr. Verma had taken my interview when I had applied for the Junior Standing Council of Income Tax for the state of MP, as well as when I had applied for the position of Senior Standing Counsel of the Income Tax. So it was due to Mr. Verma's blessings and the fact that he saw something in me and he recommended my name that I could become the Senior Standing Counsel of the department. So appearing here with Mr. Nema and Mr. Verma is of immense personal prestige to me. So that being said, as far as the amendments in the acts are concerned, they keep on happening from time to time. See, Income Tax Act is one act that is facing perhaps the maximum number of amendments over the years. Every year, some or the other amendment comes. There are circulars, there are notifications, there are judgments on the subject. So it is a kind of act that has been constantly evolving. But the revamp, what we are seeing now, that is the transition from an act to a code, the complete overhaul, that is what has been seen for the first time. In fact, as far as this government is concerned, in past also we saw that even BNS was amended. Instead of bringing amendments one after the other, a complete revamp had taken place, and I think it's on the same lines. So from 1961, there were only amendments, and then finally now we have a complete code in itself. It has taken care of lots of issues. For example, the language has changed, the outlook is very modern, and what is most important is that it has reduced the scope of further amendments. The way I look at things now is that suppose you have a car, it can be an old car, it is going through so many repairs one after the other. So why to have a car that's going after so many repairs and still being used? It's just better to shift to a new one. They both do the same job, and I think that is what the entire revamping of the income tax code is all about. So that is my first comment on this.
So I want to ask you a follow-up question. Do you think things for the MSMEs and individual taxpayer will become easier with this new code?
It will definitely become easier, and it is partially due to the mechanism that is already in place also. For example, the old time thinking of the Income Tax Act was, if suppose an individual gets a notice, suppose individual one fine day wants to know the status, that how much tax he has to pay, how much is his tax liability, how much he has already paid, etc. Everything is available online. It is very user friendly, it is very simplified. Anybody can just log in on their computers, on their phones, and just instantly check the status. What is the status of the notice? What is the status of the proceedings which are happening, etc. So this system, it was already in place. Now when the new amendment has come into the play, that has further simplified this process even more by taking care of the issues pertaining to the text. These are issues pertaining to the practicability with reference to accessibility through websites, user interface, etc. But the act itself was still, somewhat very big, very large. So while you have easy access, you would still need a sort of a legal understanding of the whole act to kind of do things yourself. So as far as the MSMEs and small time individuals are concerned, it has taken care of them by making it so simplified that now when they access these portals and online filings, etc., they can themselves understand and take an initiative, and only in extreme cases they may require some kind of external help.
One thing I want to know, the last question would be use of artificial intelligence and data mining for basically ensuring that tax compliance is there. Do you see the use growing in the coming years on this, or do you think already a lot of it is happening?
Well, as far as artificial intelligence is concerned, I can say from the aspect of the revenue, see, there are certain parameters used by the revenue to issue notices under the act. For example, just to give you an example, if somebody deposits a cash beyond a certain limit in a bank account, then what happens? The bank, they send intimation to the department that this is the person who has deposited cash in the account more than X quantity, and the department should look into it. It's because taxable income is income from disclosed source and income from undisclosed source. So if the individual is not able to explain the source of the income, then it is subject to a higher tax under the existing 115 BBE of the Income Tax Act. So these kind of small tools and parameters are already there. If suppose someone does not deduct TDS, the department automatically comes to know. Someone deposits cash, department comes to know. So these kind of parameters are already there. So when we talk about I think AI will involve going into a step deeper and perhaps taking care of issues under which notices are issued but can be easily resolved. For example, these parameters are already there under the Income Tax Act. So whenever something like this gets flagged, AI can look into it if there is some explanation within the bank activity itself that can take care of it. And number two, where AI can actually be very useful is what is in fact said by Mr. Nema. I will slightly beg to differ with his permission on it, that he said that most of the cases of the Income Tax Act, they are already covered by one judgment or the other. Now, where I would beg to differ is that the revenue also thinks the same. It is only a question as to which judgment covers which particular case at hand. So while the revenue thinks that this case is covered by judgment X, the assessee may think it is covered by judgment Y. An Income Tax Act is a rapidly evolving act. It's hyper technical in nature. So perhaps some kind of a AI can come into the picture that can easily distinguish both the things as to what judgment X may say, what Y may say, and what the instant facts of the case are. So perhaps in future, if AI can be evolved to assist in these kind of things, because see, tax judgments are very long. They run into hundreds of paragraphs, hundreds of pages. So at times, the hearing that takes place in a tax case can be very lengthy compared to a normal case, because so many judgments are to be looked after. So perhaps in a comparative way, if AI can streamline the process, then it can be of use to the department.
Point very well taken, Siddharth. Looking forward to have you on the next show where we're going to discuss investment from Singapore and Mauritius. But appreciate you joining us on this one. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.